All right, guys, welcome back to Crossman Productions. Man, guys, we have such a awesome lineup for you guys to end March and going into April. We have Power Slap 7 coming up. You guys seen some of the advertising put up for that. After Power Slap 7, so we have Wolverine and Damien DeBell is going to be defending their titles on April 12th. And then the following week, they're going to come back on the show and we're going to talk about Power Slap 7. And then our boy JR Ridge is also fighting on April 12th for the Bare Knuckle Championship. And, you know, we've been following him for about a year. And so he's trying to make a run for a title. So he will also be on that following week. Then we have Venus Monique coming back on. Larry Hankins going to be on. Larry's going to come back on, and we're going to talk about his book, That Guy, which is I'm really excited about. Larry's always a fun guy to have come on the show. Love hearing his stories. So you guys know that I have an agent. His name's Steve Joyner, and Steve has been introducing me to all kinds of just really cool people. And you know that one of the things I really like too is having other podcasters on my show. And Steve has introduced me to a couple of them. And today I have two guys from BoomBastic Media. These guys they have their podcast, and they also direct and produce films. So I'm going to bring them in and kind of get to know them and see what they're up to and learn a little bit more about their podcast and some of the things they're working on. So I'm going to introduce. Actually, I'll have you guys introduce yourselves.
Okay.
Alphabetically, Alexander.
Well, I guess I'll go first. I'm Alexander Hauck. I am part of BoomBastic Media with my pal Mathew Fisher here. I focus on producing, acting, and pretty much a lot of the legwork that needs to be done. Right. And I'll pass the baton to my lovely co-host, Mr.
I'll take the baton. I'll bring it over here. I am Mathew Fisher. I'm the writer-director, part of our team at BoomBastic Films. We also co-host the BoomBastic Cast over at the BoomBastic Media YouTube page, where we interview all types of cool folks from the entertainment world, be it directors, actors, musicians, authors, comedians, anybody that kind of entertains us. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Yeah.
So how long have you guys been doing your podcast for?
6 years, you said, Alex? Roughly 2019.
Yeah, I think we're on season 6. The first 2 years, it was just Matt and myself, talking about, pop culture, about films we love, actors we love, and all of that. On the third year was the first year we started bringing in people to interview. First episode was with Gary K. Wolf, who wrote the book Who Censored Roger Rabbit, who, of course, was the basis for the classic Who Framed Roger Rabbit. So,
wow.
Oh, yeah.
So cool. So, you're going from, season 2 into season 3, where you started bringing in, different actors. What was that like, for you guys to be able to have these guys come in and do the interviews? Was it kind of a different beast from when you guys started, or?
Yeah, we slowly, our process slowly kind of, it kicked off from like having other like indie filmmakers and actors and stuff that we've worked with. We were getting into that, and it was definitely cool to get the bigger folks involved. And I think the bigger folks were kind of around pandemic time. Maybe that's when they started punching in. Right. Our whole deal was like, we're from Massachusetts and like indie filmmakers, like I said. So like, we never really get a cool opportunity to bump into somebody at a grocery store or a coffee house and get some advice or hear some stories. So this was kind of like our way to be able to kind of have a one-on-one sit down with people from all different walks of life that we love, you know, because we're both big pop culture, TV, movie, music fans and all that, comedy fans. So, yeah, it's a blessing that these people it's a blessing that these people give us our time, you know, the most precious resource around, that time thing. And it's great. You know, we've had like some crazy journeys with people. You brought up Larry Hankin not too long ago. Larry is the greatest, of course. I remember the first time we had him on the show. For the first like 45 minutes, we just talked about the end of humanity and how like everybody was going to die. It was so, but those are like the more unique, fun things. You know, you can do like a regular interview and hear stuff that you might hear somewhere else, but where are you going to hear Larry talking about people dying? You know what I mean? It's
you know, that's one thing I love about Larry is, you know, when I got him on, it was funny because when I invited him on the show, they're like, yeah, try to wrap it up in 30 minutes. Try to wrap it up in 30 minutes. You know, he's a busy guy. So I bring him on, and he's probably been the longest interview I've had. I think he went for 2 hours.
Yeah.
So, but this dude, man, like he has so many amazing stories. I mean, this guy's done 206 films. Yeah. You know, and so he's got like a huge career. I had another actor who watched the show, and he was like, man, that guy went on for 2 hours. I'm like, yeah, but where do you get those kind of stories from somebody with that much experience? You know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah, it's a blessing to be able to talk to him. Our longest one was, I think we had Jeremy Roberts, who was in like People Under the Stairs. He was in some Seinfeld stuff. He gave us like 3.5 hours once, and we were just floored by that. Not that we're comparing dick sizes, but like it's kind of, because you interview people and you're like, you're just so happy to get some time with them. And when they go the distance with you like that, it's like, well, you know, much appreciated. We interviewed Kevin Eastman last year, the creator of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And he was doing like a tour talking about the new flick that came out, the Seth Rogen flick. We were only supposed to get him for 15 minutes. We got him for an hour, which was crazy because he was just having fun. That's the key to it. You know, I think if you get in there and, you know, you have fun with them, let them know that you appreciate their time and stuff, they're willing to go that extra mile for you.
You know, and it's just true, because I think when you sit down, I know a lot of these guys have preconceived ideas of what a podcast is.
Yeah.
You know, you have a lot of these younger podcasters coming in, and they ask them questions like, you know, what was it like working with so-and-so, and stuff that's really not relevant to the person you're really, you know, bringing on. Yeah. And so when they actually sit down and have a legitimate conversation, you know, I think they really enjoy it, and then they open up more, and they end up staying on, you know, longer and sharing stories.
Yeah, I gotta say, one of my favorite things about the interview with Larry Hankin was I think we had gone about maybe 45 minutes into it or something, and then Larry's like, you know, I really appreciate you guys. You know, whenever I start talking about, you know, going on about these things on a little tangent, the interview is usually like, Larry, let's talk about Home Alone. Okay, come on, Larry. We don't want to hear about the extinction of the human race. We want to talk about Home Alone.
Yeah,
plane, trains, and automobiles. We don't want to talk about that stuff.
Right.
and the fact is, I mean, as I say with Matt on our podcast a lot of times, is that what we love is going down the rabbit hole. Okay. Right. I mean, the thing is, we go in, we do our research, we make sure that we know, you know, what they've done and, you know, a bit of their history and all of that, but we give them the rope. Okay. Right. And we're holding on to it, and they are leading us wherever they want to go. And that's the most fun. And when, you know, they go down and they could be talking about a book they read, or, you know, a piece of art that they enjoy, and then we go and expand upon that, and you know, I mean, that's what we love to do, and what we hope is accomplished is that we get a little something different that you're not going to get from any other podcast. You know, a
Right.
little flavor of who the person is.
Truth.
Yeah.
Cool. So, of all the people you guys have interviewed throughout the years, do you guys have a favorite? I know this is like an unfair question to ask.
It's like a child. It's like what's
Yeah.
your favorite child type deal. I'll say that the one that I love them all. The one that really wowed me the most. I got two ones that pop up. There was the biggest wow factor one, which was probably Kevin Eastman, because like me and Alex grew up loving the Ninja Turtles, and it was like it was so crazy to be even close to that, you know what I mean, and be able to go and talk about those things. And another wow factor for me, at least, was we had Taco on the show, the dude who did Putting on the Ritz, and like he doesn't really do anything, and we found him, and he was down to do it, and we got a great interview out of him, and those are the cool ones when we can go dive deep into like pop culture and grab people that don't really do a lot of interviews. Those are kind of like my favorite ones, because like they're loving to talk. Like they love the people. A lot of these people almost feel like, you know, I had my thing back then, nobody really cares about me now or whatever, but it's good to like bring them in. And I was fanboying out. I love Taco, you know what I mean? And I think I made his day, you know. Alex, what about you?
Well, I mean, to follow Matt, since he said to, I have to also.
All right.
And again, I mean, I love all of our interviews. Everyone who's you know, two of my favorites, I have to say. The first would be Yui Bowl. Okay, it's great talking to him because, first of all, I mean, I've seen his movies and I've enjoyed them. And as both Matt and I have said, we think that he gets a lot of unnecessary hate on a lot of his films. But when we were going to interview him, I went and watched films of his that I did not have seen before. And that made me appreciate him even more, because there's films like Attack on Door 4, there's 1968 Tunnel Rats, two great movies that, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that if anyone gives him crap about, well, he's a schlock director, he doesn't know what he's doing, I'm like, watch those two movies. Those two are like extremely visceral and hard-hitting films. And I mean, you can't make films like that and be a bad director, in my opinion. Then another one who was a personal favorite of mine, we interviewed him in the first season, third season, when we started having people on, and that was Tom Proctor from Guardians of the Galaxy. Big fan of his, and what I loved was the fact that, you know, his story, his story by himself, you know, all the stuff he's done, martial UFC fighting, all that is just phenomenal. And it was great just listening to it. And he's another one I think went about maybe 3 hours. Because he just kept on going. And I remember I joked around like, is there anything you don't do, Tom? But I mean, those two are two of my favorite interviews that we've had.
Cool. So you guys started prior to the pandemic, and then during the pandemic. When you guys were doing the show during the pandemic, was it easier to get guests on, because, you know, pretty much everybody was? I guess that's when social media for interviews started really blowing up. You know, I came in like right towards the end of the pandemic and started doing my show, but I know that the pandemic, a lot of the talk show hosts like Jimmy Fallon and them, they started doing their show online. So was it easier for you guys to get people, or?
Yeah, I think it was. You know, part of our big pitch to people when we reach out is how much fans we are of them and like their legacy. And I think even more so during the COVID times where everything was up in the air, whether or not people are going to be dead. I think that was like, it was a little more important, I think, for people to get out there and make sure their story's told. in case they died, you know, that there's this group of people that are going to be pushing this interview way past the time we're gone. And it's on YouTube, so it'll be there forever. So I think I do think that the pandemic did kind of make people, and they're all at home bored, you know what I mean? So I think that it did kind of help the situation for sure.
Cool. And I tell people all the time that the one of the upsides from the pandemic is that the social media platforms grew. You know, they came out with so much more technology for people like us to be able to get on. Yeah, just average everyday Joes that could get on and actually, you know, host a show. But it also helped filmmakers too. There's a lot of independent filmmakers I think that's come through because of the pandemic. Did that help you guys in the film industry as well?
Not so much, I don't think, on that. You know, I think that it helped out filmmakers. We've been doing it for like a good amount of time, almost like 20 years. I've been doing it. I think Alex kind of the same thing. I think the plus side for filmmakers was it was like when everybody was facing possible death, there was really no reason not to kind of attempt dreams, attempt something you always thought you never could do. I think they were like, well, we were so close to dying, I might as well take advantage and you know, try this thing out. So I think that did spawn rather a lot of people that kind of want to, much like everything, I think a lot of people, it kind of showed them how short life can be. And they were like, well, why am I waiting? Let me just do it now, which is always a good thing, you know?
So, and, you know, I thought the same thing because a lot of the newer actors, younger actors, I guess, you know, have come out of that because they, you know, during that pandemic, they kind of went to the same thing. They're like, hey, I've been doing this 9-to-5 job, but acting is my passion. So this gives me a chance to now, because everybody's staying at home, you know, try to go for my you know, my passion in acting. And since then, I mean, you know, we've had like a complete influx of actors and directors and producers. And, you know, I think a lot of good, you know, with all the horrible things that came from it, I think a lot of good has also come from it too.
I agree with that. Yeah. You know, it's, what was I going to say? The podcasting, I'd love to see the numbers of the podcasts that popped up, because not only did like Zoom and StreamYard become your main base for communication with people, but like, I think a lot of, you know, podcasting, it's one of those things, you know, everybody kind of, it's like social media. Everybody likes to get on there and have an opinion and get the thumbs up and get people to like it. And you know what I mean? And here's you know, like Zoom was nothing. Zoom was like the smallest nothingness of a corporation. And then the pandemic, someone needs to check in to see if Zoom was involved with the pandemic. But yeah, like I feel like there had to have been millions of shows that popped up during pandemic, you know? Probably books too. I bet a lot of people that had that time were like, you know, I've always wanted to write a book, and like that was the perfect time for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I never thought about that. That's true. You know, you're sitting at home, so I mean, really nothing to do. So I'll have to look that up and see how many people have actually written books during that time frame. I bet you there was a pretty good influx of writers that came out.
For sure. I mean, I think it's like creatively, it's almost there's really no collaboration. Which is kind of a good, in that sense, it's kind of good that you can just sit down in front of your laptop and just write for 8 hours, 15 hours. You know, people are out of work. So like I'm sure there's many manifestos out there, you know what I mean? Yeah. Podcasting, books. Yeah, those are the things, dude. Yeah. But the film, we just did a film, our latest short that we got in film festivals right now, kind of fell into a weird place with the pandemic. It's called Special Treatment. We've been blessed to go to a handful of festivals, got some awards for it, but we shot it over a weekend, and then literally the next week it was like shut down. And so like that hurt us in a way where like the editing process was a little more extended, but nobody really kind of cared because they weren't expecting a future, you know what I mean? So like
Right.
there's no big rush. And then we got that cut up and I do think that kind of like for me, I tell Alex over here that like you were saying with the pandemic being kind of a good thing, I definitely see it was a lot of bad things, of course, but like for me, it kind of let me like chill and like recharge my battery for like filmmaking and all that.
Right.
And so I think it was kind of a blessing in disguise in that sense of things. For me, at least. I don't know about Alex.
Well, I mean, going off pretty much what you said, that the whole idea of, I'm not saying that the future was ever clear to begin with,
Right.
but when, COVID hit and all of that, a lot of things were put into perspective, like Matt said, that, when you don't know what the future is going to hold, that you might as well go for what you want, what your dreams. I mean, Matt and I have always been working on it, but it never seemed to be like there was a time limit. Didn't seem like we had to do this now or there won't be a tomorrow. And I mean, the thing is with, of course, help out with Matt and a little, kicking me out of my front door, so to speak. I've been, trying to get, into projects in other states and all around the place, trying to get, and that kind of, pushed me out of my comfort zone because I was perfectly fine just, doing stuff just around New England. And, and both Matt and I have plans for the near future, go to different states to promote our stuff, podcasting, films, whatever. And I think that's the big thing. Probably the only big upside from the pandemic was kind of putting a lot of the necessity of doing things now instead of putting things off.
Talking about the pandemic, you guys are doing films prior to the podcast, and you guys started doing podcasts a little bit before the pandemic. But when you guys were doing films and the pandemic hit, how did that affect the film side of things? And when did the film side of things started picking up again, where you guys can pick up where you kind of where you left off?
It hit kind of heavy. Like I said, we had a little break in between with it, like kind of mid project because of the pandemic, but it was also tricky that because it lasted, like there was a year of fear, just straight fear. But when things started to get lifted, there was still in the film world, there was still like hesitance because it was still going on set. They had a lot of stipulations. There was you have to get swabbed like every day type thing, which right there, I mean, that increases the budget, you know what I mean? So we were really kind of at a weird place even after it was cool to do things because we're like no budget filmmakers, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so that definitely was a thing. We almost had to wait for multiple eras of it to die before we can fully pop into it.
Right.
And even when we're shooting a project right now, my third feature, and even like we had to put that off a little bit and wait till the waters were a little calmer for us to be able to step back in because it was. And if you weren't like, how people were with the masks and stuff, that it was like, if you didn't have the swabbing and you didn't have all these procedures covered, like people were totally against it. They were like, we're not getting back on a set. And at that point, there's legality in there too, where it's like, you don't want to bring somebody on set, them get sick on your set or whatever. Now you're getting sued for everything you ever had.
Right.
Even if like they got sick elsewhere, they'd be like, maybe the production can pay for everything I ever wanted,
Yeah.
So they do one of those things. So we really kind of waited it out. We kind of waited it out maybe a little longer than other people did. Like Alex he does slightly bigger to come from my ego. I'll say slightly bigger projects than what me and him put together. Right. And I remember he had some issues. Well, not really issues, but like he was on some film sets where those rules were in place, whereas you got to get swabbed before you go in, masked the whole time.
Right.
There's probably some other crazy things involved in it too, but yeah, that was more. You want to talk about that, Alex? I never even asked you about that, actually.
Well, I mean, the thing is, well, I mean, there's two projects. One was which is now out on Amazon and through Lionsgate, called Bloodthirst. That literally was right in the middle of 2020, and it got released last Halloween. And yeah, that was a fiasco. Just getting down there. I mean, honestly, it was also in Las Vegas.
Wow.
It was actually in Nelson's Ghost Town, which is right outside of Vegas. So itself was, away from the main strip, but I mean, everything was pretty much dead. There were
Right.
strict regulations on that. We then did another one called Bermuda Island, which we shot in Puerto Rico, and that was even harder because now I mean, Puerto Rico is a territory of the U.S., but still
Right.
it's its own separate thing and its
Right.
own regulations. And yeah, there was a point where we had to shut down because of a possible outbreak, and we
Wow.
lost a few days on that. Um, yeah, I mean, unfortunately, that's the case. I mean, we on all of those projects, everyone involved was very conscious and was very careful. But
Right.
no matter how careful you are, you can't always predict.
Right.
I mean, all it took was one person who was like, on one set that didn't have any regulations, and then come to our set with regulations, and because of that, people got sick.
Right.
So, but I mean, the thing is, we nipped it in the bud, and we got what we needed done, and we moved forward. But again, going off what Matt said, I mean, when you're doing working like Matt and myself with absolutely very limited funds,
Right.
something like that would just, we wouldn't be able to get back up, especially if someone got sick. So that's one of the reasons why our podcast really kind of took hold, because it was easier for us to do and kept us still busy.
Yeah. Cool. So let me ask you this: with all the since you guys have been doing this for such a long time, what is the biggest lesson that you guys have learned?
You learn them every day. You learn big ones every day. That's a good question. The biggest lesson that, do you have an answer, Alex, that I can think, or?
I you know me, I can go and expound on licorice for 50 minutes if I have to.
Yeah.
But what I have learned doing, there's a lot of things. Probably, I think the one thing that I would always say, anyone who wants to do anything creative, filmmaking as an example,
Right.
learn everything that you can. Let's say you want to be an actor or a director. No matter what position you want, it
Right.
could be your ultimate. The only thing you want to do, you don't want to do anything else, but you should learn everything on set, because first of all, it gives you an appreciation
Right.
that, first of all, as far as I'm concerned, there's no such thing as A, talent, or B, crew, or diversion. As far as I'm concerned, you go in, you're a team, okay?
Right.
And nothing's going to be accomplished if you go in with the mindset that, well, I'm the star and everyone has to kowtow to me and kiss my ass.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that if you have even one person, whether it's an actor, director, or someone else, with that kind of mentality that the buck stops here, or I'm great for whatever reason,
Right.
that hinders the ability for everyone to create and work together. and
Right.
that's the biggest thing. So my opinion is learn everything, appreciate everyone, and learn how to work together. Even if, I mean, I've worked on sets with people that I just couldn't get along with, but like any job, you swallow your pride and you work it, and you don't have to work with them ever again afterwards. But you've
Right.
committed to this, you go through it.
Right.
Yeah. One of the things you learn, it takes time, but picking up on them red flags before they become too much of a problem.
Right.
See, he's better at that than me. I always end up stepping into it, and I'm like, well, I'm already friggin' here.
You gotta kind of trust your gut, and don't lose sight of what you're trying to do. You might collaborate with multiple people and get tied into other projects and stuff, but don't lose sight of what you're trying to do, because a lot of the time, some of those people aren't going to really care about your films the way you're kind of caring about theirs. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that was a big kind of a lesson that I learned in film. 'Cause I used to produce for a lot of people. I don't really do it anymore. I kind of produce just under our umbrella, the people that come like to us to do it, or we know them.
Right.
More so even know them, because we've had people come in the mix before, and it's just it's kind of a nightmare, because they know that you've been doing it a while, so they try and have all the work kind of fall on you, and they just want to live the glamorous lifestyle of being a director or something like that,
Right.
and really work for it. And so that's probably it. Just kind of learn to pick out the red flags and know I think anybody that's going to get into it, you should kind of have a layout of where set goals. Setting goals is something. I think that's something that me and Alex, that's something we kind of stand behind. It's like you set down a goal, you work towards it, you knock it down, you set up the next goal, you keep going, you keep going. A lot of people get kind of lost in the sauce where they hit that first goal. And they spend the rest of the time patting themselves on the back when they could be continuing to progress. You know what I mean? And it's not, patting yourself isn't a bad thing. Because another thing is celebrate the small victories. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's when you get a win, you appreciate that. Really appreciate that. There's certain people that aren't getting that win, so respect it. And it's one of those things. But that's probably it too. Appreciating, it's very in this business, with the different budgets and like that, and you seeing maybe other people getting accolades that you might not feel are as talented as you or whatever. It's like you got to kind of appreciate the things that come to your table. You work hard for these things, you get them. You get accepted to a film festival. Not a lot of people do. That's a good thing. Don't have an ego about it, but know that you accomplished something. We know a lot of people that'll beat themselves up because they're not making multi-million-dollar films, or even multi-thousand-dollar films, and it's like,
hey, I'm willing for a few buck film right now.
on film, and it's like you always got to kind of look at the bigger picture of everything and kind of be appreciative of what you kind of have, because there's always going to be people that have less than you and more than you, and you got to be comfortable and happy at your place. You know what I mean? That's kind of the only person you're impressing at the end of the day is yourself, so to speak, I guess. I don't know. So just kind of do that. You know what I mean? But yeah, definitely celebrate the small victories. And if people think that's crazy, fuck them. But, because the big victories are few and far between. They come, but you got to appreciate every little thumbs up you get,
Right. You make a good point, because in this industry, there's a lot of rejection.
Yes.
Yeah. And so when you get, that one, that win, or you meet a milestone, go ahead and celebrate it. But set yourself up for the next one too.
Yeah.
And you said something too, Alex, that when somebody gets on the set, they're a part of a team. There's sometimes what people don't understand is sometimes taking on, like, say you want to be an actor in a film, and you go for the audition, you get turned down. If they offer you a role as something else, maybe a cameraman or holding lighting or doing grip or whatever, take that opportunity, because those small roles, even though it's not what you're ultimately trying to get, do, but they lead to opportunities.
Yeah.
So for the next film, they may pick you for the actor, because now you're getting in and you're getting involved with, that director and that group, and they kind of know you. So now when you go audition, you're not a nobody. You're somebody that, they've worked with.
Also, another thing that I've learned, I mean, for example, I'm assuming everyone's seen A Few Good Men.
Right.
Okay. I don't remember the actor's name, but you have the two guys who are on trial. Okay. The African American gentleman. I saw an interview with, I think it was Rob Reiner, and he actually was like, I think, Rob Reiner's PA. Okay. He hadn't really acted before, is the impression I got. And the fact was they were looking for someone for that role. And, the guy was walking by and Rob was like, I think he can do it. He looks like he can definitely pass for, a guy in the military. He's young enough and fit enough. Right. And then they, talk to him, and then, the rest is history. Right. And the fact is that's not uncommon, where a lot of times you have actors who end up being either casting directors, PAs, cameramen, and all of that, and they want to be actors, but they end up being picked for something else. And when they're there, they're like, oh, you know what? Val Kilmer's sick. He can't play this role, but right. You happen to be the right size or right look. You know what? We think you can do this. So let's give you a shot. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But a lot of times, opportunity, okay, right. It pops up, and opportunity pops up more frequently if you're on set, even if right. You're just the one helping out with catering.
Right.
Yeah. They want people. They want people around them that they're going to be cool with too. So like, if you get on set, work hard, be right. Polite. Don't fake the funk on being polite. Preferably be polite. But it's very. You think of it like if you were in their shoes, it's like, you're going to be working with this person for like 15 or 30 days. It's right. Like, you're going to want to work with someone that irritates you the first day. You know what I mean? Not right. So much. You know what I mean? But so that's important too, for sure.
Cool.
Oh yeah.
So wait, you guys, with your podcast, do you guys have a particular episode that was really difficult for you? Like not so much like a difficult guest, but maybe like a difficult subject, or one that was just like really tough for you guys?
We, the one that pops to my head immediately is not difficult because of the person, right. But situation wise, I know that we had Carolyn Grimes on our show once, and she's from It's a Wonderful Life. She played Zulu there. Every time every time a bell rings, an angel gets her wing. Right. And we got into, out of the blue, we didn't even see it coming. We got into a conversation about like depression and mental health and stuff. And tragically, her son, went that route. You know what I mean? Right. Like horrifying stuff. And it was like, it was kind of an emotional episode because like she was so sweet. And it's just like when you do these shows with people, you bond with them. You're getting into the mix with it, and then something like that comes up, and you feel that pain. You're like, oh, because I think everybody can relate to it, but being right there with them in the moment, talking about these things, and everybody kind of deals with depression. I feel it's kind of like the flu; it just flows around in the wind, and sometimes it catches you, sometimes it doesn't. But I remember that episode was kind of tough in the sense of that because, like I said, the sweetest lady you could imagine, and just going. We talked about how like It's a Wonderful Life. It starts off with James. What's his name? Alex.
Jimmy Stewart.
Jimmy Stewart. Yeah. It's like he's killing himself on a bridge. Right. He's going to jump off the bridge. You know what I mean? We talk about how like, there's people that kind of will see that maybe in a dark time around the holidays, and like they can relate to that character, and almost by the end of it, they can have like a new lease on life and be like, okay, it'll get better. And it's just so, it was so like sad that like somebody that was involved in a movie that I think has done a lot of good for people, tragically had to like deal with that. You know what I mean? So like that was I know that was a lot on me and Alex, but I don't think we've ever had like a tough episode that was like because the guest was rough or anything like that. Everybody's been pretty cool with us, but yeah, I remember that being like, that came out of nowhere. Like it just kind of popped up in conversation, and then you're like kind of dealing with it. But it's not like it was a dealing with it. It was like you're trying to spin it into a positive thing. You know what I mean? You're trying to make comfort her in the same conduct an interview or a discussion, but like comfort her because you like care about this person. We cared about her. We cared about her coming into the show because we love the film. And now you're having like a one-on-one, you're bonding, and like you hear this, and it's just like you're almost like want to stop and be like, it got too dark. I don't want to bring you down that road again. You know what I mean? But like she was cool with it, and we went there. You know, we did a Christmas special last year, and we had Gary K. Wolf on. You know, we've had a few guests that have blessed us with like reoccurring guest spots, and we did the Christmas episode, and he was talking about how he was on leave in the Army when they one year, and like we got into like what Christmas was like there, and he says he doesn't talk about it, and I was like, dude, I was like, I like stupidly, I felt like an idiot. Where I was like, well, what was it kind of like over there during the holidays? And he was like, well, I don't like to talk about it. But like he went there, and I feel like there was something therapeutic in that conversation for I think all three of us. And it went in a weird thing, but like at the end, it was worth doing, I think. You know what I mean?
Well, do you have what you Alex said? It was kind of sticks out to you.
Well, I mean, of course, those two, which Matt said. I mean, I would say, again, actually jumping back with an interview I said earlier with Tom Proctor. He was on the first year we did interviews, and it was, of course, COVID was a big hot topic at the time, and one of the things that we talked about was not just the deaths from COVID, but even more deaths because of suicide, because of depression, being kind of forced locked down, people that you love dying that you're not able to actually say goodbye to because of the restrictions. Tom, of course, unfortunately, I'm kicking myself. I don't remember. He actually talked about a helpline and all that people can reach out if they feel like they are struggling with depression and all that. And that's another thing that I like about our show is we give the option and we, if there's something that they're passionate about, whether it is about suicide prevention or drug abuse or anything like that, and a lot of times we don't even know about this until we start in the conversation. But we're open to wherever they want to go. I mean, if they have something that they want to share, we want to help them do it.
Right. Yeah. So, and you guys bring up a good point too. And I think that this is something that the younger generation should really pay attention to is, this new generation, everything is, they do everything through technology, talk to each other. One of the things I really like about what we do is we sit down and we have a genuine conversation with somebody. And I think that this generation misses that. The way I do my show, the way I look at it is if, we're sitting down and we're talking over coffee or talking over a beer, and just, having just a conversation and getting to know somebody. And I think the younger generation kind of misses that. They're like, everything's got to be now. They don't understand the value of sitting down and talking to somebody, hearing their story.
I also think that they're getting used to being spoke to as instead of conversation. Like they'll watch a TikTok video where it'll be an influencer talking about bullshit or whatever, and they're just listening, and there's really no interaction with them. And that's kind of a lot of the youth, I think, get tied up in that thing where like it's more of a being talked at as opposed to talked to or conversation. And you hear a lot about the thing with like with COVID, even in like, and like, you know, TikTok and the social media and stuff, where it's like there's a disconnect that's kind of happening with the youth, you know what I mean, where they're kind of they did kind of get the short end of the stick in a way, because like they didn't choose for technology to kind of like take over the way it has, or they didn't choose for the pandemic to come in and make it so they can't go to school and like have conversations with classmates and stuff. But yeah, I definitely think that being talked to as opposed to a conversation, I think is definitely kind of going to be a burden on like the future youth for sure.
Yeah. So, and I try to make it, you know, be intentional when I meet people, and I talk to them, you know, to actually listen to them, tell, you know, listen to their story. And that's how, you know, I started bringing them on the show. I'm like, hey, you got a great story. Just come on the show, let's talk. Yeah. But, you know, and then you never realize there was one girl that I was working with, and she was 7 something. She was pretty tall. And then I found out that she actually played basketball overseas, you know, for the WNBA. And so I was like, wow, really? You know, so, I mean, you never know. You never know what somebody's history is like, or, you know, and then, you know, so now, like when I sit down with people, I try to be intentional when I talk to them and kind of, you know, really get to know them and get to know their stories. Do you guys find it the same way now?
Yeah, I do. I wanted to comment that you're head on there for listening. Listening is so powerful. Just being somebody there that somebody can tell you whatever's going on. And it always brings me back to like Bowling for Columbine, if you guys remember. I remember they were interviewing Marilyn Manson, and they were like, hey, if you had the kids here right now, Eric and Dylan, what would you say to them? What would you say to them? And he said, I wouldn't say anything. I'd listen. That's what nobody did. And it was like, that hit hard. I was like, whoa. And he was dead on. People need to be able to kind of vent and have someone that like goes there with them. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Cool. So now you guys are doing films. Do you guys have any films in the works?
Yeah, right now we're doing a feature-length film called The Wicked Hollows. It's based off of the Bridgewater Triangle, which is like a local folklore in Massachusetts. After that, we got tagged in to do directing a Peter McNeely documentary, The Boxer, from Medfield. And then this gentleman in between us, right, the cream to our sandwich, is this dude's always rocking around the earth, moonwalking MJ style all over the place, walking on water. So what do you got coming up, Hauck, for acting? You got anything? Are you going to Germany or something, aren't you?
Well, I mean, there's a project called Ever After, which is supposed to be shooting in Hungary.
Yeah.
I have a small role in that. I'm still waiting to find out exactly when we're going to shoot. But that is definitely psyched about that. I mean, other than that, I mean, I was in Vegas, literally last weekend, shooting a small role for a film called Inferno, directed by Eric Mathews. That was a fun experience. And earlier this year, I was in a film called Bikers versus Werewolves. You can probably guess what the plot is. It's pretty self-explanatory. We did that, and I mean, those are the big things right now. I mean, Wicked Hollows is the big thing that we're working on right now. Of course, the podcast and all that. I mean, there's a few other things kind of in the air, but I mean, until you sign on the dotted line, it doesn't mean anything until you have to sign.
Right.
Yeah.
How did you find time for all that? I mean, to act, do the podcast, and do film.
I have no idea. I still have absolutely no idea. I am running like with a chicken with his head cut off. I mean, I turned around. Matt sends me a text like, "Hey, Alex, we got an interview today, tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that, and wait, you're also flying out? Okay, so when you get back, we got another interview. We got this, we got that. I mean,
Well,
Matt keeps me busy. I don't have time to get into trouble.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Because we're part of a network too. We got like 11 shows on our network, so
right.
it's not just BoomBastic Cast. We got a show called Behold a Pale Podcast, which is like a truth or conspiracy type show.
Well,
Alex and me are a part of that. There's another show called Mostly Ghostly. That's a paranormal show. We've got Dead Kids of Derry, which is like a watch along Stephen King type show.
well,
The network. We got a Juggalo show, Wicked Juggalo Pod Trash. We have a show called Trauma Mamas Podcast, where we got Ariana and Sam, these two mamas with trauma that talk about this stuff. We got a show called The Lighter Side of Serial Killers with Keith Riveri. For any true crime people out there, he's the only show that actually has the killers call in from prison. It's kind of wild. A Wrestling Champs. I'm probably forgetting some. Blood and Bud they talk Billy and Jess on the network. They talk about weed and horror movies and stuff. We have our BoomBastic streaming Patreon page. I think that's kind of like the future. It's like a direct hit into like your audience, and you get all the uncut videos of the podcast there and all the movies and stuff. It's like a one-stop shop for like all our stuff. And the network came about because we had a lot of friends that we worked with or have known through just life that kind of wanted to do podcasts. So we kind of created that network to kind of offer a little something different. Like all the shows offer a little something different to anybody that kind of like tunes in, you know what I mean?
right.
Yeah. Which is fun.
Cool. So, if you guys will send me the link to the
Patreon?
Yeah. Patreon. If you send that to me, I'll post it on the bottom, like in the comments.
Very cool.
And then people could check out all the different podcasts that you have. At least 4 of those that you said. I know my daughter would be interested in seeing it.
See, that's our job, corrupting young minds.
That's what we do here. Yeah.
So she loves the horror movies, the listen to podcasts about serial killers and paranormal, and so all that stuff. So she's part of your audience. So
yeah, we have a little. That's the plan. We have a little something for everybody. It's the first couple. I think the first like 3 or 4 shows on the network, I think, was kind of me and Alex, and Ray Booten does the Mostly Ghostly one. He's a spirit medium there, and then it just kind of fell in place with all these other shows coming around. And the Serial Killer is a show that who's a guest. We had him on our Behold the Pale podcast show because he's an author that writes books about serial killers, and his whole deal is like sometimes people get turned off when they hear the lighter side of serial killers. It's not really glorifying it. It's kind of like trying to figure out why people would do these things. You know what I mean? It's cool. Yeah.
Wow.
But hell yeah.
I wonder what I have to go listen to that now because I wonder what that's like to call. Yeah, I need Ted Bundy on the show. Have him come on my show so he can tell me all about his murder spree.
Yeah. I'm a fan, and it can get pretty creepy. Keith has some very interesting people on there. He had like Keith Jesperson, the happy face killer, who was like known to drag people from a truck. You know what I mean? Like that was one of the things they did. And I remember one day he was like, I was listening, and the dude was like almost making fun of this, like having fun with it. And he said, if you're ever looking to lose 150 pounds like that, just get dragged behind a truck. And I was like, what the fuck? Wow. Like, what is going on here? But Keith is like a good-hearted dude, and his whole with the books and with the podcast, it's all like he's just trying to get. He comes from more of a religious standpoint on it, to a degree of like why do they do it, and then like the whole question of like forgiveness he gets into. It's like, can these people be like forgiven for what they did type deal? A lot of people would say no fucking way, but he feels that they can be if they do the deal.
Yeah. Wow.
It's interesting. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm definitely gonna have to check out some of these, man.
He's a pen pal with David Berkowitz. It's like, it's funny because like he has these gigantic. We on the BoomBastic cast, we have all like these, you know, celebrity type actors and directors and stuff. And his show's like all these like infamous people that are like, they're famous, but for like all the wrong reasons.
Right.
It's funny.
Man, that's crazy. Okay, I can't imagine that phone call. Just calling these people up, and then do they do like Zoom, or they just do like the audio?
He's been getting more into Zoom lately. It's a little more difficult, but mainly it was call-in stuff, and it's very you'll listen to it and you'll hear their voice and you'll just be like, that's a serial killer for sure, dude, for sure. They play the part. Yeah, he's tricky. I think I've only at one point he said he was talking to that Jared Fogle dude, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know if you need to go there, buddy. That could be too much.
Wow.
The Subway guy. But
yeah, one guy you want to keep the foot long away from.
That's true. That's true. But yeah, it's all in good fun, I guess.
Wow. Imagine you get that follow-up call, so someone's come back on and do some more.
Well, that Happy Face Killer dude's been on a show like 7 or 8 times. He got his whole thing is that he kind of met him. He reached out to him through like pen pal stuff, and then eventually got on the phone with him. It's took him like 20 years to get that close to some of these people where they feel open with him to talk, and he doesn't exploit them. You know what I mean? He kind of lets them tell their story. A lot of them have become religious, so like I think that's kind of an he had because he kind of has like that religious background too, and he's not really judgmental of them. So like I think they're very comfortable with him. So yeah, he talks to like all types of interesting people. I'll just say interesting people. Yeah.
Wow. You're talking about spending that much time trying to get a guest on. Do you guys each have somebody that you would love? Like your fantasy guest, to come onto your show?
I'd love to talk to either like John Carpenter or Sam Raimi. I'm huge fans of them.
Right.
We've like courted guests forever. Like we had Richard Stanley on the show, and I went back and forth with him for like a year before we finally got him in there. There's people that I've literally been talking to back and forth for multiple years.
Right.
I don't want to say their name and then it pop up on somebody's show and feel like I got to take a nap for a couple days. but like, yeah, you got to be persistent with them. And I think some of them, they just want to know that like, yeah, I'm not just putting you as a guest because I said, well, why not have this guy? I see them on Facebook or whatever. They want to know that you actually do care about them and appreciate their time, and you'll bend over backwards, so to speak, to get them if that's what it takes,
Right.
What do you think, Alex?
Well, I mean, if I was to list everyone that I would love to get on the show, we'd be here till next year. I have a huge list that I've been people I'm trying to track down. I have to say, jumping off of what Matt said, again, John Carpenter, Sam Raimi, both of those guys would love to talk to. I actually would love to talk to Sam's brother Ted. I'm a huge Ted Raimi fan, and I'd love to talk to him, Lance Henriksen, Michael Ironside. Those are the 3 top that I can think of that I would really love to talk to. But there's a lot of others. There's Matt Frewer, Max Headroom, I'd love to talk to. But yeah, I mean, there's so many, and the actors I like are the character actors, the actors that aren't the leading man or woman, the characters that are the sidekicks or the villains or the comical best friend. Those actors are the ones that I like because I consider myself an actor like that. I mean, I love those that can play the crazies and also be the lovable guy next door.
Right. What's funny is everybody I've had on has been a villain, in a film or a television show, are the nicest people.
For sure.
they're always the nicest people. I mean, you're like, how are you such a bad guy in this, in this movie?
It's easy because they get all their anger and frustration out on the screen.
It's true. That's very true. That was something I learned earlier in the beginning. I remember my first film, I had a cameo by a dude named Eric Buddha Medina. He was like from the hardcore band Blood for Blood. And when you talk to him on the phone, very soft spoken. He's a screamer, you know what I mean? But very soft spoken. Same thing. I worked with a dude named Necro. He's an underground hip hop dude. All his music is about killing people. But like you talk to him on the phone.
Right.
He just like a sweet dude. He's just kind of like soft spoken, very respectful. Like when he came on set, I was being like, he was kind of somebody I was worried about having on set because I was like, judging from the music, like, is he going to be like, I'm not like, you give him direction and he's like, fuck you, I'm going to kill you. You know what I mean? But he was like very respectful and it was cool. He's like, if you want to do more takes, just let me know, man, we'll do it. And it was better, you get in there and really kind of direct them. And it was a lot of fun. So yeah, like I definitely agree 110% with the people that are kind of the most, their art that's violent, if you will. They work it. It's like therapy for them. So like they work it all out in their art, and they're cool and calm after. It's like the nice guys that don't get to work out that anger. They're probably kind of weird in real life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's me. I bottle up all my anger.
Gotta be careful with that. It's no good.
Well, cool, guys. Well, guys, thank you guys so much, man, for being on the show, man. It was great talking to you guys, man. Getting to know you.
You too, man. This was a pleasure, dude. We thank you for having. We'll shout out Steve Joyner, dude, our mutual buddy. You know what I mean? Great guy. Mucho gas.
Man, he's been hooking me up with some really just awesome people, man. So,
and he's a great guy.
Hank is being one of them. I mean,
he's a great dude. He came into our life maybe like 3-4 months ago, and one of the a really stand-up dude. Good guy, like a good-hearted dude, and it's a blessing. He's willing to help us out, just out of being cool. You know what I mean? And the world needs more people like that for sure. So shout out Steve.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So thanks, Steve. Thanks for hooking us up, man.
Hell yeah. You'll be on the BoomBastic cast soon too. I heard rumors fluttering. Yeah, hell yeah.
Cool. So I'll be on with you guys. April 10th?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Yeah, that's gonna be a blast, man. So until we talk again, guys, man, I appreciate you guys.
Appreciate you, brother. Have a good night.
All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. This episode of Crossman Productions. Definitely go check out the link that I'm putting in the comment field, so you can see all that these guys are working on. As far as their podcast, and go check out the movies too. We'll have you guys put a couple of, send me some of the movies and where they can find them, and we'll put that in the comments too.
Well, real quick, if all the free podcasting stuff, go to BoomBastic Media, BoomBastic with 2 O's on YouTube. That's where we have all our shows for the BoomBastic cast shows, and then the BoomBastic streaming 2 O's BoomBastic on Patreon. That's where you get uncut videos of every show on the network, not just BoomBastic cast. And we have 25 plus movies on there for people too. So, definitely come check us out, and mucho gracias to everybody involved. Very good. Thank you.
Cool. So you guys definitely go check it out. And until next episode, guys, remember, you are uniquely designed with a purpose, and always keep moving forward.
Oh yeah.
Peace.
Peace.